for today, really just focusing on answering any outstanding questions. We've pre-populated a survey asking delegates for questions that they may have. We've got some of those questions here. We've also got some of the questions from previous webinars that we've demonstrated. And really, it's just a case here to cover those points off and any other points that need to be raised through this webinar. Just reintroducing myself again. My name is Tony Cook. I'm the Managing Director of Vertex IT Solutions. I've been involved with the Oracle technology landscape since before 2000, so going back to version 6 of the database, version 10.6 character of the business suite. We're Oracle partners and Oracle University resellers and Oracle University digital advocates. And on the call today, I have with me Aidan Duffy. So Aidan, over to you.
Thanks a lot, Tony. My name is Aidan Duffy. I've been working as an independent Oracle consultant across the UK and Europe since 1999. I've worked for most of the multinationals. At this point, I'm based back in Dublin now. The reason I created the training is because I transferred from technical into functional, and I think it really future-proofs your career, and the direct impact for me has been my contracts have got a lot longer, and that's what we hope to teach in the training and what we're going to talk about on the call today.
Okay, perfect. So just go and reiterate on the previous slides from previous webinars that we've demonstrated, just some of the current market challenges that we're facing. It is undoubtedly one of the biggest transitions, I think, that the Oracle marketplace and indeed IT as a whole has been or will go through, and we're currently right in the thick of that as we speak. There's a lot of mixed emotions, shall we say, and a lot of mixed messages regarding moving to the cloud. However, a lot of organizations can see the benefit of doing that. What that means is that we've created, or this created, a fairly stagnant market over the last 2 years, where a lot of organizations are just maintaining their systems and running down their current assets. And now organizations are starting to make that transition more and more, and we're seeing a lot more adoption of cloud-based ERP applications. And obviously the timelines of implementing a cloud-based solution versus an on-premise ERP historically are significantly quicker. So therefore, there's not as much time for individuals to learn through that project lifecycle. Really need to kind of hit the ground running with existing knowledge of the applications and the methodology of which that they need to be implemented. So coinciding with that, it means that at this current point in time, the majority of the implementation work is being managed by systems integrators across the world, which means that there's little work for contractors unless it's with the systems integrators, or we're getting more and more of these type of roles where organizations are looking for experienced or cloud certified consultants to come on board from their project teams to provide almost like a QA service from the client project team, ensuring that the systems integrator is fulfilling its obligations. It's still very much a new market. One of the big challenges with adopting a SaaS methodology is that an organization will have to go through 6 monthly upgrade cycles, and with that there's new features to adopt potentially, or there's an analysis to do looking at the gaps between the new features and the current processes. as well as ongoing testing for those upgrades, which shouldn't be underestimated. And certainly the user base as it stands is quite small. However, that will continue to grow. As we all know, it's at Oracle's end of year at the moment, so I'm sure they're closing off a large amount of transactions, which means we'll see a whole new raft of customers this year adopt cloud applications and cloud solutions. So it's a case of, as individuals, how do you contact those companies? How do you get in touch with them? How do you find out who they are? Do you train up, become a consultant and move into a systems integrator to gain that implementation knowledge? Do you take your existing skill set, enhance that with cloud training and methodology training, and then move to an end client role? So there's lots of questions that need answering, and understanding that market is quite a difficult thing. So obviously, what we're doing as a trainer and as a recruitment partner is to upskill individuals and help them gain a foothold in the market and add real value to their career moving forward. And alongside that, we can aid them to understand the current market rates and conditions and salaries and expectations that the roles ahead of them, and really work to identify the next role for them, really. So there's a lot of challenges out there, and obviously becoming cloud certified and cloud trained certainly will pay itself back in dividends for that future career. And bringing that in line with methodology training, Aidan, is really some substantial value.
Yeah, something you said there about that currently the resources with the skills are those that are based in that work for SIs. I mean, isn't this kind of like when EBS started? It would have been broadly speaking the same, that the large consultancies and then the SIs sort of control the market, and then resources from those that used to work for SIs or large consultants sort of broke away, became independent, and then we had an independent market, which sort of developed from that point.
Yeah, very true. If we go back to the shift from character to GUI, you couldn't find resources in the later GUI technology, and therefore the consultancies were taking the work, but then they didn't have the resources either. So it's a case of they come to recruitment agencies and consultancy, the consultancy market from a recruitment perspective to get those resources on their projects. So it's a case of very much like this slide's showing graphically, it's a chicken and egg situation. How do you break that circle? Well, the best way to break that circle is to invest in the upskilling that you require to get the knowledge to then get on these projects. So that's very much the model. And with the market, it does develop over a period of time, but the benefit with these old sort of ERP programs is that once the resource pool runs out, the end clients and the consultancies were saying, look, okay, we'll still take someone who's an experienced e-business suite or JD Edwards consultant, and then they can upskill as this program develops. But with these types of implementations, you don't get that time. There's still, it's a much quicker implementation, and therefore, you don't have that benefit of being able to learn on the job so much as you used to. So that's a big thing. And I guess the other thing to mention is that there were years between releases on the on the legacy systems, and therefore you had a long time to, embrace that new features, the new functionality, the new setup, moving into sort of sub-ledger accounting, for example. That was a slight change in the way that the architectural aspects of the system, changed to support that. But now the system's been upgraded every 6 months. So how do you keep ahead of all those new features and functions? Well, subscribing to something like CLS will allow you and enable you to do just that as well. So it's got many facets and many angles of which individuals and organisations can gain benefit from that.
And the fact that you're forced to do a mandatory 6-month upgrade means that there's a constant stream of work with the same client.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, there are systems integrators that are putting together now managed service solutions, but equally that they're not necessarily going to be very cheap. And organizations do look for continuity, and therefore having internal members of their team that can take care of these systems and upgrades and test cycles is going to be something they're looking to achieve. So yeah, there will be, and it will continue to grow, the market from an end user perspective on a BAU level, let alone the implementation work, which will start to become more and more defined in the contractor market, shall we say.
Yeah, I mean, I've had a look at the impacts from a functional consultant's perspective and also from a technical consultant's perspective. So, as you mentioned, I think the shorter project timelines means there's less time for finding out how the cloud works. I think the second thing that reinforces that is that there's an emphasis on configuration rather than customization. So, because you're choosing from the list of options that exists in the standard product, that you need to be more familiar with those options, I think, on a shorter time scale. I think in general, because cloud is a little bit uncertain, I think to be able to demonstrate a strong methodology like Oracle Unified Method, which we also teach in the training, I think that gives you a great a roadmap for your conversations with the client business people and for getting hired in the first place. In terms of information on cloud itself, like there are many blogs for EBS, but not that much for cloud because it's still quite a rare skill. So to have the training as your kind of knowledge base would give you a massive kind of step up into your first cloud role. So I also think the other fact that there's not that many people with cloud experience who are, let's say, not part of an SI or consultancy means if you've got the training and you've done the methodology training as well, you're really at a big advantage over the other consultants or people that are coming from EBS, I think. And we talked about the mandatory upgrades means recurring work. Then from a technical point of view, I mean, the reason I switched from technical into functional is because the value to the client is less for a technical consultant in terms of the project life cycle. And I think functional consultants are valuable from the initiation of a project right until it's handed over into BAU. And for me, I transferred from technical into functional, but it wasn't a very smooth transition, because I didn't really understand the project methodology, and having learned that and based the training around my own, sometimes painful experience, I think that's the real key for a successful transition from technical into functional. And I mean, the other thing about Oracle Unified Method is that it's your roadmap. Like, this is your Bible for saying what we're doing today, what we're doing next week, and the rest of the project could be actually dependent on you for advice, rather than coming in not knowing cloud as maybe a less experienced version. That to have the methodology training, I think gives you a big advantage. And I think overall for technical consultants, it's just really difficult to predict what the future is going to be. In the intermediate stage, I think when we've got coexistence, and until people figure out the standard capabilities of cloud to a deeper level, I think we'll have a degree of requirement for technical, but beyond that, it's very difficult to predict what the long-term future of technical is. From my point of view, I've switched out of technical. I don't see a very good long-term future in technical. I think it'll be primarily offshore, and I think functional is the longer value play really to get those skills and start moving into functional, because I've been able to do it, and there's no reason why technical guys or testers or business people can't make the same transition.
No, I'm certainly with you there. I mean, obviously, you still, from a technical perspective, yes, as you rightfully said, it is more configuration than customization. That's for sure. I think that also there's an element of the integration, REST APIs, using some of the web services to get these systems integrated, using potentially the service bus functionality in the middleware. So there's a lot of integration and development that could come from that. But equally, I believe, like you, I think there's more of a future for the kind of business analyst stroke functional resource moving forward. I think the other aspect to bear in mind, Aidan, with the methodology is enabling all the consultants and the customers to talk Oracle speak, to understand terminology and the methodology that, Oracle, like every IT organization, loves an acronym. And, you know as well as I do that having been in client meetings, talking to solution architects and having representatives of their business analysis teams there with them, that it's very valuable having everyone on the same page, talking the same language, and that's what the methodology training will enable, everyone to achieve, and that then speeds up the life cycle of your project, because then there's no information being lost in translation. There's no miscommunication, and that's a big part of making a deliverable successful. So we've got some questions that have already been sent in via the survey that we put out. Should we start just running through some of those?
Sure.
So we've got a question here from Oyasili, saying that obviously he's asking, how can I learn the skills quickly? I mean, I guess I've spoken to a lot of people over the last, I'd say 3 to 4 weeks while we've been going through this incentive, and I'm speaking to more people on a daily basis. It does depend on your learning curve. I mean, I know that some people have a steeper learning curve than others, so it really does depend on the individual. Some people need to do something 3-4 times before it's kind of into the mind. Others can do it once and it's there. So it does depend on the individual, but how can you learn the skills quickly? Well, it's really about keeping focus on that training, using the learning paths that exist within the learning subscription, and being disciplined about what you do. So if you can put those 4 hours a day, or we've already put on the timeline previously, you can condense this and become certified in less than 2 months. If you have only 2 hours a day to commit, then you're looking at a 4-month period. But it's really a case of putting the focus in, keeping focused and dedicated, and monitoring those learning paths and how you're progressing through the training that the system allows you to see. You know, I think that's the big part from where I'm coming from. Anything to add there, Aidan?
Yeah, I think from my perspective, one of the great things about the Oracle training is that it gives you the opportunity to learn in different ways. So you can learn by video if you're in transit or commuting, let's say. You also have the transcript and written kind of backup materials and manuals. So I think you have the best chance really to learn in the way that suits your learning style. In terms of learning skills quickly, from my own personal perspective, the best way to learn is by actually doing it, and you have the access via labs to actually do that. So rather than trying to ingest the entire receivables course for 3 weeks straight, I would be inclined to break it down into various different sections, then go back and practice. And because it's actually the physical or the physical act of actually creating the config will embed it in your memory for later recall.
Yeah, and if you could just make me a presenter for a second, Aidan. I'll share my screen so that I can just show people. I'll just show people the learning subscription. So can you see my screen? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So if we go into a learning subscription itself, this is the dashboard that you would come into. Up the top here, you have a progress option. So if you click on that, it will then take you through a learning path, as you can see here. So the current learning path, and this can be condensed or expanded to suit your requirements, but this is the implementation essentials, and then it will take you through all of those phases that we've spoken about in the presentations about, you know, getting started, onboarding, learning the history, and then going through the introductions for each of these modules. And this is how it can really help you to structure the way in which you take yourself through the training. Equally, you can go down and look at this per role. So if you want to focus on the functional elements, obviously from a HR perspective, you need to really understand the core product first. So it makes sense to go through HCM first, and then some of the other applications that wrap around that moving forward. So there is a structure here. I think it's nice and easy to follow. And then obviously you have your certifications that you can take as well. So you know, I would really say that from a learning perspective, the progress chart here is a really powerful thing to utilize. So just looking at some of the other questions here, Sandeep sent a message in asking, is it true that Fusion is based on ADF and not forms and reports? Now, I'm not a technical person, but I think it is based on ADF. Aidan, do you have any input there?
Yeah, as far as I know, it's based on ADF, and that release 12 is the last we'll see of forms and reports. From talking to Sandeep, he had another question about how or whether it's possible to build a career when your location is that there aren't many Oracle clients, let's say, in your location. So maybe we could talk about some of the points there.
Yeah, it's difficult. I mean, I don't have the notes of where Sandeep is from, but yeah, I mean, if you're in a European country where typically it's been, you know, dominated by SAP, for example, and where you can take a foothold in the Oracle market, My answer to that would be that you know, if you're a European, then you can travel freely throughout Europe, obviously, and there are a lot of cloud adopters across Europe, but there are not a lot of cloud resources. So, you know, getting yourself ahead of the game, as we've been talking about, and in terms of learning and training, then that will put you in good stead applying for pretty much any role that an organization needs you to apply for when adopting the cloud technologies. Really, it's a case of working your networks, understanding, again, the companies that may be adopting cloud, working with a specialist recruiter such as Vertex. I mean, there are obviously lots of recruitment agencies out there, and lots of them are very, very good, but really working with an Oracle specialist will help you to identify those organizations that are taking that transition, and a lot of Oracle partners as well. Try and network with the Oracle partners that you know in your region that are building a brand or a name for themselves within the Oracle Cloud market.
Yeah. So what Sandeep also mentioned was that that most of the Oracle work in the location where he is goes to the SIs and the consultants. And I guess from my point of view, that's actually a positive thing in his favor, because the Oracle clients that are in the market will be used to paying higher rates, and if Sandeep was to set up as an independent or start marketing himself as an independent, you're in a much smaller market. So I guess I'm in Dublin, I'm in quite a small Oracle market, and there are the downsides to that is that there are not a huge amount of clients, but then there's not a huge amount of local competition. So people that have to travel from the UK are they're less inclined to compete with you for those roles. The local clients would prefer local resources because they know they don't have to fly in and out, and they're seen as more local, let's say. The second point is I think that Oracle are signing up a new type of customer. So rather than two clouds, because it suits different types of customers and not just the massive multinationals that EBS is, that they were the only clients that were able to afford EBS. Yeah. So what I've seen is that a new type of client is coming on. They don't have relationships with the SIs like the multinationals would have had over a long time, and that's actually an opportunity rather than a downside. Plus, if you get established in a local market, you become the local guy, and as Tony said, it's about, you know, talking to a recruiter that has a good reputation in that market and sort of gleaning the market intelligence from them, working with your recruiter, and you have the chance to dominate that local market then.
Yeah, some good points there, and you're right that if you make yourself that local brand, and whether that brand is with the SIs, with the end clients, or with the recruitment agencies, I would suggest a combination of all three of those. Then you'll be a lot more successful in securing future project work. And again, you're absolutely right. A lot of the cloud customers that you see on our slide through these presentations that we've done in the other webinars, they're new Oracle customers. They weren't Oracle customers before, and so therefore, you know, those companies that are sat on big EBS systems or big JD Edwards platforms at the moment, they're not the ones that are necessarily moving. Some of them are, but they're not in bulk. So therefore, you know, they are new customers to Oracle and a different mindset.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we also have I think we have Victor on the call actually, who I've spoken to. Hi Victor, and you know, hi there. I think he's had some questions around what is the next best product. Victor, would you like to share with us your question in more detail?
Well, the question is about the Oracle direction, where this Oracle product goes.
Okay, as in the applications?
Yes, yes.
Okay. I'm not 100% qualified to answer this question, but I'll give it my best shot if I can. So in terms of what's available at this point in time, obviously we have Cloud ERP, which is gaining a very solid foothold. That's mixed in with a combination of finance, procurement, and obviously projects as well. I know that this has been driven quite well by the EPM market. I know a lot of organizations are building in the planning and budgeting into the finance as well, and things like the financial accounting hub. So I know that market is growing and growing really nicely. The HR product is a lot more defined, and that was one of the early adopters in the cloud space from a SaaS perspective, particularly with Oracle. And I know that that's taken a solid foothold, and that will only continue. I know that talking to my colleagues in the systems integrator space and with Oracle, that now they're not just selling HCM on its own. It's normally now HCM ERP combined license deal. So that's becoming a lot more commonplace now. So you know, that's where the market is now. CX is very strong. There's some fantastic products in the CX space. You know, Service Cloud, Eloqua from a marketing perspective. And then obviously you have CPQ, which is working very closely with Sales Cloud and Sales Service. So that as a product suite is a very good set of applications, and I'm working with a client at the moment who have implemented that solution globally. So I know that there's a very solid market. We're just now getting into the stage of where supply chain is becoming a lot more defined in that cloud space as well. So more requirements around order management and some of the warehouse management. Obviously, Oracle recently purchased Logfire, which is a new WMS product. So we'll start seeing a lot of increase in that space. And alongside that, we'll see more and more sort of customer hub, product hub, MDM type implementations in the cloud as well. So that's where I see it at the moment. You know, obviously BI as well. I know that there's a lot more analytics coming down the line. So more and more organizations want intelligence from their business. So again, that's another aspect to look at. And of course, obviously, we've got the middleware and the integration market, as well as you know, the database and the platform as a service. So there's a lot of growth in all of those areas still yet to happen. And you know, those for me are the next big thing, if you like. Aidan, any points to add there?
I think Victor was also talking about becoming an independent consultant. Is that right, Victor?
Yeah, it's an idea.
Well, I think we go back to that. Sorry, go on. You go on, Aidan.
Yeah, so I mean, my path to independent was I started as a programmer, and then I had heard about these higher paying jobs with multinationals, and that was my first e-business job. So I worked with a multinational called Symantec, and we ran an upgrade, I think, from 10.5 to 10.7 at the time, and because the project required a lot of extra resources, I suddenly found out that there was this opportunity to work as an independent consultant. So we had a certain amount of consultancy staff come in, but we also had 7 or 8 independent people come in. And the thing that struck me about the independents was that they had a much different lifestyle than I had, kind of living in Dublin, working in Dublin, that they all were traveling from various different places, and the lifestyle and the job and the places that they'd worked before seemed very exotic to me, let's say. So what I did was I after the project I built, I maintained my network with these guys, and they were the original mentors that kind of gave me the steps to become an independent consultant. And one of them gave me a recommendation for my first contract, which was with Oracle themselves in Thames Valley Park in Reading. I mean, I guess from the outside, the job doesn't look that different, an independent consultant compared to someone working for a systems integrator. But people who work for SIs and consultancies always have a large group of people, of senior managers that they can ask. They always have backup, let's say. Whereas if you're an independent consultant, unless you develop a really good network, that can be quite can be a challenge. But it's definitely achievable. And one of the ways that I got over that challenge was to learn methodology, to learn how projects worked, and to base all of my communications, all of my discussions were based on the Oracle Unified Method and methodology and its predecessor. So once I was kind of using that methodology as a framework for my discussions, I quickly developed a reputation as someone who knew what they were doing, let's say. And once you develop that reputation early, and you can, the path is kind of relatively clear after that. So there is a really healthy independent consulting market area, and I think that market is thriving. It isn't going to go away anywhere soon because of the difference in the rates and experience levels between SIs and what independents can provide. It's more of a confidence thing to say, right now I'm going to be independent. I'm going to develop relationships with recruiters in the target areas that I want to work. And what gives the extra thing that would give me great confidence is to have the training and the product training and methodology training behind you, because if you have that, you're bulletproof, let's say, and that would be my recommendation.
Yeah, I'd just add on that as well. Some very, very solid points there, and obviously Aidan's talking from experience of making that transition. I think one of the things that separates an independent contractor from a permanent employee is the confidence, and you've touched on that, Aidan, and having been through the methodology training that we're talking about here really will add to that confidence. You will know what you're talking about from an implementation perspective, but couple that with the technical learning that you'll gain from Oracle's learning subscriptions. It's a powerful tool, one of which that I believe as in the independent market will pay you back in dividends, and even as an employee for your employer, it will pay them back in dividends as well if you're currently employed. So it adds benefits in both senses, but certainly from the contractor market, it's a lot of it is confidence for sure. Does that answer your question, Victor?
Yes, Tony. Thank you.
You're welcome. One of the other questions that Daniel asked was that if you subscribe to CLS, can you download the course materials? So I'll just take you through one of the learning paths here, because the answer to the question, unfortunately, is no. and there's a reason for that. So let's just go into a particular piece of training. Let's go into Core HR here. This is an HR learning subscription, so it's very focused around human resources. We have the skills-based learning. This is the same in any learning subscription that you'll be in, and at the end of each point there's a skills check where you get your box ticked, shall we say, once you've been through it. And under each major skill, there will be a lab environment that you can book to practice the elements of which you've just learned. Underneath here, we have the activity and the student guides. So if we click on that, it will then take you into the student guides. And you can access these through a CLS. You can access these for an entire year. So as you can see, it's very much like a book. I've just scrolled through it there, and it will take you to the pages that you require. And you can access this whenever you need for an entire 12 months. You can leave this tab open while you carry on going back through some other learning. You can open up another point. So it's there, it's just not downloadable, unfortunately, and this is only down to some less scrupulous people you know, abusing the system, really, and it's unfortunate, but it's just the way it is, unfortunately. Aidan, do we have any other questions that we haven't answered yet?
Yeah, there was a couple that I wanted that have been asked a couple of times. The first one is about whether companies would take on consultants who have just done the training, or would they look for previous implementation experience on a real cloud project? Okay, so that's a very good question. In answer to that, in answer to that, so I'm stuttering a little bit here, organizations will take consultants who have no real-life implementation experience, but are certified and trained, and can back that up with an experience of delivering IT projects. I think that's the answer to the point. You know, and certainly if you can dovetail that with the methodology understanding that we've been talking about, you can, in an interview, really demonstrate the fact that you understand the methodology to implement the software, and secondly, you understand how the software is implemented from a technical perspective. So, I mean, we've got clients that we're working with right now who have been live with cloud for over a year. They can't get the resources, and therefore their remit to us is that we will take people that are either trained or have a very good background in financial systems, but can demonstrate that they have good process understanding, and we will then train them up. So they're looking to invest in people, but equally, if you go in with already that investment in mind and you've benefited from that, you'll be in a greater position to negotiate in your salaries. Whereas if they're investing in you, there's little room for maneuver when it comes to negotiating a permanent salary with an end user, for example. When it comes to contracting, equally, some of the systems integrators, if you've got experience of implementing ERP or CRM or MDM, for example, and you've recently cross-trained up into that area within the cloud, they are very interested in you. We have them knocking on our door all the time. So I don't see that as being a barrier to you securing another role. Are there any other points, Aidan? Yeah, just from my perspective, I guess one of the problems with the concept of certification and what a lot of experienced consultants will say about certification is that if the person is certified but doesn't have any project experience, what use is that. They just know the product, they know how to configure the receivables, let's say, but they don't have any project real-world experience. And it's natural for people with lots of experience to say, well, experience is the most important thing. And the people who have certification say, well, certification is the most important thing because this piece of paper proves that I know what I'm talking about. But the people with certification think that that's most important, but an interviewer could ask, well, how much project experience do you have, or do you understand what the life cycle of a project is? How long will it take you to come up to speed? Will you look at your manager and say, I can't do that task, or I've never done that task before, I just know how to configure the product. And then to be able to talk, to be able to combine both, to have the certification or at least the training, and then to have the project implementation experience. And the way you demonstrate project implementation experience is by talking in a methodology that the majority or the entire industry understands, and that's Oracle Unified Method. If you're able to get that across using that framework in an interview, that's the easiest way to demonstrate that you will be a solid bet. You will be able to go into the project. You'll be able to fit in right away no matter what phase it's in. You'll know what's expected of you. You'll know what the other people are doing in the project, and you'll be swimming serenely through the project rather than looking great on the top with your certification and kicking like mad to stay afloat. And that's the kind of benefit of the dual the training that we have, is it gives you the training plus the certification. It also gives you the knowledge to be able to get onto a project first, to thrive during that project, and to be there at the end when the new projects are being planned.
Yeah, well put, actually, Aidan. I can't agree with you more there. You know, there is one thing being certified, and there's one thing putting that in line with the methodology and process. And I think, you know, this training that we're putting together here really does align that, and I don't think there's anyone else that's doing exactly this, and it really is powerful and will separate you from anyone else when you're interviewing if they haven't got the methodology understanding. So very well put. Just quickly, I know we're close to kind of wrapping up, but just quickly, I've had a lot of questions about, you know, the learning subscriptions and the unlimited cloud learning subscription, and, you know, individuals saying to me, you know, what should I do? Because a lot of what I do as an individual, say if I'm in finance, I cross over into procurement because we've implemented procurement or purchasing and iProcurement as part of a finance implementation in the past, or there's been elements of order management creeping into finance as well that I've had an involvement with, or there's planning or budgeting or projects. So, you know, should I buy more than one learning subscription? Well, no is the answer, because buying more than one is very expensive. You can get access to all of the learning subscriptions that Oracle has by utilizing the unlimited cloud learning subscription. Obviously, that's the price there. We've got, as you know, big discounts going on at the moment, so that's not the price that you would pay. But these are the channels that you get access to for the entire year. So if you're HR and you do tap into talent, for example, this is probably a better option for you. If you're finance, but you lean heavily into projects and you've touched on procurement, then maybe this is right. But one of the things I will say, and I've said this to pretty much everyone I've spoken to, is that there's a huge amount of material in here. You know, there's just hours and hours and hours of content. You've got your labs, you've got your learning materials, you've got your access to the instructors. Please think about time and what you're able to commit to the learning, because I would hate to see people that spend, you know, it is a large amount of money, and it's worth the money, but only if you can commit time to absorb the content that resides within these learning subscriptions. So, you know, it may be better for some people to say, right, I'm going to focus on finance, and then maybe next year, instead of, you know, just renewing finance, I'll then renew and take a full unlimited subscription, in which case then I can start bolting on some of the other products. So, you know, if you've got an individual challenge around this, then, you know, reach out to us via the Vertex website, which is vertex-it-solutions.com, and reach out to the training team, and we'll answer these questions for you. But I think that's worth mentioning, because this can add value to a lot of people, but it could be a hindrance if you can't commit the right amount of time as well. So I know we've got a few minutes left. Are there any other points we've not covered today, Aidan, that you can think of?
I think pretty much that's it. I mean, we did have one comment about the level of the training. Let's say one of the people on the previous calls was wondering how the training is structured, whether it's kind of learned from scratch, or do you have to go through the whole thing, or does it suit different levels of people, experience levels?
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's a university, as Oracle put it, so, you know, they're very much looking at the product from the ground up. So from sort of zero to hero, if you like. What I would say is that obviously if you've got a background in ERP, or if you've got a background in finance or financial systems, or you've got a background in HR systems, for example, then you're going to learn a lot of the terminology. You'll understand the terminology, of course, but the Oracle terminology and the Oracle product itself, that it's very much from the ground up. What you can do with these learning subscriptions is you can jump forward, and you can go back, you can fast forward, rewind, you can move all over the place that's relevant for you as an individual, and still take your certification. So, you know, you don't have to follow a specific path to gain your certification. You have to answer and pass the exam to gain your certification. And, you know, it's what's relevant to you, and what you may already know, you know, a fair amount, and therefore you can skip forward on some of the lessons that you may already know if it's talking about basic process, for example.
And then just one final question from Victor about which is the cloud version to go to, Release 11 or Release 12?
Well, the good thing so if we go into, say, finance here, you can, as you can see, you can drop down from, you don't want to go back to 10, obviously. I mean, the majority of customers are on Release 11 now. So from a learning perspective, you know, you can come in at Release 11, but, you know, in R12, you've got your certifications there. It would be better for you to learn from a latest version, because by the time you've taken on that learning, there will be all the new customers from an implementation layer will go to Release 12. They won't go to Release 11. And obviously those customers that are currently on Release 11 in the next 6 months will move to Release 12 anyway. So it's better for you to learn in the latest release. And then if you want to ascertain the differences between certain versions, you can go back up here and click back to version 11. And, you know, there may be some changes that you might want to be aware of. So my advice really is, as a new delegate, would be to learn on the latest release for sure.
I think that's it on the questions now. Okay,
perfect. Well, just one thing to mention, as we've got a big incentive to enroll people in this learning before the end of this month. We need to close off applications by the 22nd of May. We have got a lot of applications, so for those that do want to proceed, we would need to hear from them and start that process by the 22nd. So we need to process it. Obviously, the wheels need to be put in motion to get the subscription confirmed by the end of May. So that's just one thing to be aware of. And you know, obviously, hopefully we'll talk to people soon. And by all means, don't hesitate to reach out to me or my team, the Vertex training team here. My contact details are on that slide, and we'll be happy to answer any points or take any calls as and when required. Anything else from you, Aidan?
No, just to say thanks very much for those who sent in questions. It's really great to be able to get the feedback from people who are considering the training, and just thanks for the opportunity to talk to you guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and just a final note from me. If you haven't guessed, yeah, I did shave my beard off. So, so hopefully we'll hear from you all soon, and thanks very much for the time.
Thank you.
Thanks.